Welcome to the U3 Media Podcast, where our mission is to unite the world through coffee, connecting you to the farmers and coffee entrepreneurs through the stories they share. I'm Christy Ross, and joining us today is Nate Hamood, Managing Member, President, Director of Coffee, and one of the owners of Dessert Oasis Coffee. So welcome, Nate. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. So for the benefit of the audience, I want to share a couple of things about you. I like to call it setting the stage.
Sure.
So you have been in the coffee industry for about 14 years, which includes a number of different aspects of the supply chain at Dessert Oasis Coffee, which is a family business that you helped start in 2009. You're also a co-founder of Ace High Company, an all-natural ingredient hair care product company. And you were Crane's Business 20 in their 20s honoree, and you received numerous awards for roasting, for your coffee program, general business acumen, and your community focus. So, oh my God, did I get it all right? Like, you got a whole list here.
Well, thank you. No, much appreciated.
So most people that have been in an industry for like 14 years, they're not normally still in their 20s. So please share your story of how you first got started in coffee and exactly how old you were.
Absolutely. So yeah, we started back in 2009. Dessert Oasis was a kind of concept of my family's. My mom was looking to go back to work. You know, it was 2009, sort of the downturn of the economy. And, one of those types of scenarios where kind of a wild time to start a business, but at the same time, really just kind of felt like it was as good a time as any in a way. So we figured it'd be something really kind of small at first, a place that the community could come play live music. My sister is actually now a touring musician, but at the time she was,
cool.
I think 16.
That's very cool.
Yeah, for sure. She has some really amazing work and is doing great things. But at the time she was 16 and looking to play at some more, just bars and stuff like that. And we kind of realized there weren't really a lot of places that someone could actually sit and listen to music in a more sort of focused environment that wasn't just another loud bar or something. So that was a piece of the business. Desserts and just a community gathering place was another piece. And then we had some basically like diner coffee. It wasn't really the best coffee, but it was a piece of the business. In that, I got really interested in the world of coffee and really wanted to develop the business a bit further in that. So I literally used to go to my parents with these profit analysis charts, as a 13-year-old kid trying to explain why, it would be, also financially feasible for us to begin roasting our own coffee and actually improving what we were doing on the coffee end. So after a while, I was able to convince them to let me try my hand at roasting. I had told them I was pretty cheap labor. I was just excited to do it. I saved up and bought a Ronco rotisserie oven that was converted to a drum roaster, and that's what I got my start roasting on. It was early enough, back in the coffee scene of those days, to where that was different enough, and I think really got people interested in what we were doing, even if it wasn't where we are with coffee today. It was the beginnings of it for us. So that really just kind of helped kind of give us a bit of a launching pad. And, we just sort of legitimized what we were doing with coffee a little bit more over the years as I just kind of learned more about the craft and, eventually got more of a real roaster. And, it was just, kind of onward from there.
So that is one thing I was interested in around college, but I have to first say, I lived through the financial crisis when you're talking about, 2008, 2009. So to start a business, I want to put a really big exclamation mark on that you guys decided to start it at that time. I think that's incredible and what you've done and what you've grown it into today. Major kudos. So you go off to college. You said you went to college. When you went off to college though, what were you majoring in? Like, what did you start, college focusing on after you've already had so many years of experience literally like in the business?
Yeah, business administration. So I was at the Irvin D. Reed Honors College at Wayne State, pursuing a degree in business because I knew I had a passion for business, and I felt like I was getting real world experience, obviously, but I also really kind of wanted to have that textbook knowledge as well. But I started to realize that to really pursue the growth of the business, and it felt like the time was then to really focus on the growth of the business. I really needed to kind of focus. So I actually met with the dean of the honors college and asked if they would put my scholarship on hold for a little while. Didn't know how long necessarily, while I tried to pursue the growth of the business. And they were very kind in saying, we can't hold it indefinitely, but for a little while at least. And, maybe you won't need to come back. If you do, we'll have your scholarship here. So that was really kind of a nice kind of safety net, I think, for me to have, even if I didn't really, I didn't really envision going back per se, but just to at least say, okay, I've got that option,
Yeah, for sure. So it was, what's really interesting is, so when you talked about your sister and sort of the role that she played around music and you jumping in at such an early age and the timing of when you started the company, like all of these things. It was funny because when I was looking at your website, it in the About Us section, it tells a bit about your story. But what I love is the way that you tee it up on your website. You're like, it's unconventional. It's a bit weird. We wouldn't have it any other way.
Totally.
I love that because I think just even with what you've shared, so far, it really sort of encapsulates that, the way you framed it. So
Well, thank you.
totally love it. Okay. So what I want you to do is, share with the audience about, anything about desert. I want to say desert.
Yeah.
I want to say desert. I'm positive I'm not the only one.
Yeah, you're certainly not. Yeah.
Okay, so actually, let me ask that. Where did the name come from? And do you have people confuse it all the time for, dessert versus desert?
Often. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of a part of our history at this point, right? We at one point had thought about changing it, but it just seemed like it was too much a piece of the story. And honestly, there's, something kind of conversational about even the conversation around it, right? Talking to people about, dessert and desert, and, it's a conversation starter at a minimum. And honestly, that's, at some sort of core or foundation that, having
it gets people talking.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. So, okay. So talk a little bit then about dessert, because I saw on your website, oh my God. And I promise you, Nate, I am going to order a whole bunch of this. You have a whole bunch of cheesecakes. You have so many cheesecakes. Wait, Captain Crunch Berry. That's like nostalgia, like for me as a kid. And
Absolutely.
Lucky Charms and Bailey's and banana Nutella. I could go on and on. M&M. So talk about the cheesecakes and is that part of the dessert in the name?
Yeah. So the cheesecakes are a huge part of our business model and our story, really. So that's where the Dessert Oasis piece really comes in, and it's kind of the roots of it. So we had desserts because that was kind of, again, kind of a piece of the community gathering place, being able to come in, grab a dessert after dinner, listen to some live music. It was really just kind of a nice ambiance and sort of vehicle for what we were doing. And that, was in the early days, it was just desserts we were bringing in. But as we started to really kind of dive into our coffee end and bring up the quality there, I started talking with my dad about how I felt like we really needed to kind of amplify what we were doing with desserts as well, right? And kind of bring it to that same level. And then unbeknownst to us, he had these amazing cheesecake recipes. So my dad's an attorney by trade, and we were entirely unaware. I mean, he never baked at home. I mean, this was total news to us that he had these cheesecake recipes. So we were like, sure, let's try them. And they were awesome. And, at the time we were maybe making a few of them a week or whatever. So he was able to do that. And he was making us a few cheesecakes a week. Customers were really liking it. And then over the years, he started to get, more and more experimental with the different kinds of cheesecakes. And as we scaled, he couldn't make them all anymore. So, now we have a team of about 8 bakers actually, who are cranking out cheesecakes in our new headquarters facility and everything. And they're developing some awesome new flavors all the time.
Oh my God. I absolutely love that. So 8 bakers. Well, first of all, I'm so impressed with your dad. By the way, I have some cheesecake recipes.
Right. He can write up a mean contract and, make some amazing cheesecakes by night,
Very impressive. Very impressive. So, so 8 bakers. I'm taking a step back here. So how many employees do you actually have?
Yeah, so I think we're around 65 employees, throughout the company and locations now. Yep.
Yeah. So, and how many locations?
4 locations. One of those is our newest headquarters facility as well. So that's where we do all of our production. Our offices are here.
Okay.
It's kind of our company headquarters and center point.
Okay. And that's in Michigan?
It is. Yep. Yeah, that one's actually where I am today in Ferndale here.
Okay. Got it. Okay. So talk a little bit about your role. I mean, you're running the place.
Sure.
Talk a little bit about like how that developed over time.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, so I wear a lot of different hats, and I think part of that came from taking on things over the course of time. Really, as director of coffee, I do all the coffee sourcing. I head up our roasting department. We do have a few production roasters that help me on that front, as well as a production manager that helps, with order fulfillment and everything. So I'm mostly working on profiles and kind of directing our coffee program as a whole. So working with how we integrate our coffees into our stores and train our teams, all of that. And then, as president, a little bit more sort of vision and financial strategy and all of those types of aspects. But I mean, really, it also just comes down to, if there's a toilet clogged that needs to be plunged, I'm around and can do it as well. So it's really kind of every aspect of the business that I step into. And, to me, that's something that I really enjoy. I think if I were doing any one task for the, entirety of my week, it wouldn't be as exciting. Right. It really scaled over time. I think, I had a really great mentor in my dad in terms of, general business strategy. He's a business attorney. So, he always had his foot kind of in entrepreneurial endeavors and structuring deals and things like that. So, I learned a whole lot about business strategy from him. And I think I just really kind of got geeked about that whole world as well.
Well, and I want to talk about your dad, but I have to mention, it's entrepreneurship at its best when you include, cleaning the bathroom too, so
yeah, absolutely.
I'm totally been
Whatever
there,
takes,
understand
right?
it. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's actually talk about your dad a little bit, because
Totally.
I feel like, first of all, that's a cool thing to have, is that kind of resource. And what I gather is he's kind of behind the scenes, but he really, he plays a big role for you. So talk about really how that works.
Totally. So I mean, now I think what's really cool is over the years, he's been able to also focus on some of his more core strengths and stuff as well, right? I mean, with his background in law, he's been able to do a little bit more sort of like advising for the company, essentially, like a, board of advisors or something. He's always sort of my sounding board for a lot of things. And he's always, really helpful in trying to navigate different projects that we're taking on. As we've grown and opened new locations, new leases, and we have kind of a foot in real estate with having actually bought the building we're in Rochester on a land contract back in the day, and that kind of became a piece of our business as well. And trying to invest a bit more in the infrastructure of the company as well.
Sure. So amazing to have your dad as a sounding board like that. And
Totally.
listen, it's always helpful to have an attorney in your pocket.
For sure.
Um, so do
We
you?
always,
Yeah,
we always used to joke we were the smallest company to have in-house legal,
Right.
Yeah.
For sure. So, okay. So one of the things, you're talking about, just expanding and adding locations, which is a big undertaking, and doing it right really matters, right? So location,
Sure.
location. Like what would you say are sort of the key factors that you take into account when you're choosing to add a new location, or how do you sort of, stress test that, if you will?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I wish I could say it was really sophisticated market studies and, and things of that nature, but it never really has been. It's always largely been, getting a feel for the community and seeing if it's something that would support what we do. And, I think as long as the brand fits with the community and seems like it could be a real organic piece, that's a large piece of it, honestly. Rent rate is important. Whether or not the space will even work for what we're trying to do without it being, an egregiously large build-out project. Most of our buildings, I would say up until Ferndale, were ones that we were able to keep the build-out pretty minimal in terms of, where plumbing even was and things like that, right? They were at least restaurants before. There was plumbing and electrical, and we just needed to move some things around, mostly change aesthetics. So, we're looking at all those types of things: build out costs, the space itself, the community it's in, what foot traffic looks like. And I would say normally our model has been downtowns, but our new Ferndale flagship cafe is not downtown. It's more industrial / residential. And we've actually really been finding that that's been really cool for the concept.
Yeah. No, it sounds like it fits really well. So you also have, we talked about the number of employees that you have. So you have a lot of support roles like within your company, which is something.
Totally.
It sounds like you implemented it earlier.
Yep.
You did that earlier on rather than trying to do it all yourself, which a lot of entrepreneurs try to do that, versus just you guys, you built the structure, and yet you brought a number of people in, which of course really, really helps with the foundation because you surround yourself with, amazing people. But what was the, what was the reason, or why did you actually decide to do the structure that way versus doing it all yourself? Although, thinking about it at 13, you couldn't quite do it all yourself.
Yeah. So, there's really kind of a couple reasons for that. I did not think about really having that many support roles and stuff as a 13-year-old. I really, at first, of course, it was just a matter of doing as much as I could myself, because it was also just what we could afford to do as a company, right? I mean, we had to keep the team pretty small. So it was really just kind of whatever I could do, I would try to do myself. That meant all sorts of aspects of our growth. But as we grew, I started to realize that was going to be a limiter for us, right? If everything needed to go through me as the only person in charge of it, I feel like delegating to me was honestly not something that came super naturally, because it was, to me, like so much easier just to like do something rather than, talk through doing it, and so I'd always kind of fight myself on that. But we had such passionate people on our team that were ready for opportunities. And honestly, that's one of the things that really drives me to want to continue the growth of this company, is really just to create more of those types of career type roles in our organization, more careers in coffee. And I see growth is really the only way to do that for our team. It's really cool to be able to have educators on our team who are now full-time focusing on coffee education for our team, writing curriculum, production management, and our VP of personnel being able to focus solely on personnel, right? Because it matters. Our finance director is now more of a full-time position. A lot of these were all baristas who, maybe they were in school for business, right, and accounting. And so they had that interest, and they would do a little bit of bookkeeping for us, a few hours a week. And then that grew into more of a position. So we've always really hired from within and really kind of grown the organization that way. And I think that's also really one of the things that's allowed us to stay true to who we are as we've grown.
Yeah, I love that philosophy. I mean, about providing opportunity for people that really want to take it and try something different, and they actually become, they're much happier, for one, and number two, they're getting so much more out of it, and they're going to give so much more back. And so I love that philosophy. Built companies with that same mindset, as well. So, okay. So I want to ask one other thing about family businesses, because they can be tricky sometimes, it can be a blessing and a curse, and yours sounds like a blessing on so many different levels.
Absolutely.
It's cool. But, what would you say is maybe like the top two positives, like just incredible positives, which feel obvious in a certain sense, but I want to hear it. Sure. And then if there's anything that's negative or something like that, but it's, because listen, you always end up working through it. You got to work through it somehow. Right. So if you're comfortable sharing something maybe that was negative, share how you worked through that. Sure.
So I mean, in terms of positives, I think largely, one of the things is that I feel like it can really be felt by everyone in the organization and people on the other side of the counter. My parents aren't as involved in the day-to-day anymore, but I feel like you can still feel that is our roots, right? It still in a lot of ways feels like maybe a scaled version of the days where it was literally just me, my mom, and my dad behind the counter every single day, before there was even any employees. And then it was one employee and two employees, and all of those people just became a part of what we do in such a really connected way. I kind of hate the the cliche that we're all family in companies, because I feel like that's often it's an abused phrase in a lot of ways, but it being a family business, it really does feel so much more connected in that way. So I think that's one of the really positive things. Also, just being able to work directly with my family. It has, I think, probably strengthened my relationship with my family over the years to navigate challenging times together, and to be able to be there for each other at our best times as well. I think there's a lot of positives for sure. Of course, there are challenges at times. We've had our share of obstacles over the years that, of course, become, in a lot of ways amplified when it's family, right? It's hard to compartmentalize things, I think, in the same ways that you can maybe sometimes with other business partners. But, to kind of go back to a positive on that, we have always gotten through those, and I think we're better for it.
Yeah. No, I think you nailed it with that, because it is everything's exasperated because because you are family, but then you're still so much stronger. You're going to come back together. You're going to figure out a way to make it work. Totally. And you can do it all without any sort of corporate filter.
Right. For sure.
Right. But, do you find it hard to be like at family gatherings and not talk about business?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. My fiance, actually, we get married this weekend.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah,
that's exciting.
We often get dinner with my parents, and, she and my mom are always giving me and my dad a hard time, because it's hard for us to not, jump into business talk and stuff when we're at the table. Because, honestly, it's probably, you would think we see each other maybe, even more often than we do. For the most part, we're, chatting over the phone more often. And I don't know. It's hard for us to really separate that. I don't even see it it doesn't feel like work when we're talking about that type of stuff, really, But yeah, they always tease us for it.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Okay, so oh my gosh, I have so many other questions here. So talk a little bit about sourcing your coffee.
Yeah.
Have you personally taken the trips to Origin, and maybe share an Origin story that's had a big impact on you?
Sure. I mean, so we work mostly with importers. I've had a lot of invites to Origin, but honestly haven't taken up any of them yet. We'd like to for sure, but honestly, getting away for the few days is really the
hard,
right? The big challenge. But we've really found that working with exceptional exporters and importers has really, I think, allowed us to not have to do that. I would love to be able to shake hands with the producer and have that face to face. But our importers do such a good job of sort of forging a lot of those relationships, and then really just having good relationships with those importers and exporters. They connect us with the producer as well. We'll sometimes hop on a FaceTime with producers, Zoom call, whatever. And we try to we do have a lot of coffees that we have more recurring relationships with and purchase year to year. So we feel like there is still a lot of that relationship aspect.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I also saw, so you offer a seasonal rotation of like single origin coffees. So what is the strategy behind that rather than, mix it up with blends,
Totally.
that are available all year round?
Totally. I mean, so, my passion is in really small micro lots, really unique coffees that, frankly, there just aren't a ton of, right? They're small lots. They're not huge yields. And, we find that they're generally best within, 6 to 8 months or so. So we've always tried to keep to that. It obviously does present some challenges on a business model end, but I think that's also just kind of become a part of our model. The fact that we do all single origin, in the early days, I had done some blends for like our espressos, just to keep things kind of consistent. But I was finding I was putting so much time into, maintaining sort of consistency in blends that when we started offering a single origin espresso as well, like as a second espresso, and everybody was, more excited about the single origins, I was kind of like, well, why am I putting all this time into developing blends? Let's focus on just really highlighting each origin, each lot, and we'll try new coffees with our customers, right? They'll get to get sort of a constant rotation.
Yeah, sure. No, and that's a differentiator. And on top of that, you're helping a lot of those smaller farmers that don't have that large production. So I mean, it's multi-pronged here. I think it's great, and I think it's a differentiator. So
For sure.
okay, so I gotta turn this to you and talk about you personally here a little bit, because you're already a serial entrepreneur in your mid to late 20s. So talk a little bit about your other company, Ace High Company, which you started with another co-founder. I think it was in 2016.
Yep.
Talk about how that came about, and also why hair care products.
Sure. Yeah. It seems like the most obvious pairing with coffee, right? No.
Of course. We're all doing it.
Yeah, exactly. So our director of finance here at Dessert Oasis actually is my co-founder in Ace High. When he started working on our Rochester team back in, I feel like I should know what year he started. I think it was 2014 or so that he started with the company. He just started as a barista, so he wasn't like our finance director at that point. But we had kind of become fast friends, and we started to get really into the hair product world. A lot of our friends were barbers, and stylists, and we would talk with them, and they kind of got us into trying different hair products. And there was like this sort of like craft hair product company movement, so to speak, back in like 2012 to 2014 were some of like the, bigger years of it, I would say. It was a very small sort of pomade community. And, we used to just try these different products. And after a while, we were like, these ingredients aren't crazy to get a hold of. Maybe we could try to make our own. And, obviously we had a passion for branding and all of that. So felt like it would be a cool thing for us to just kind of moonlight, basically. So we started brewing these little batches of pomade in our kitchen of the Rochester shop after hours. Actually, we would close up the shop at 10 o'clock and be closed up by 11 or so, and we would brew these little batches of a dozen jars of product over the evening. Took us quite a while to develop the first formula because I don't have a background in cosmetic chemistry or anything. So it was really just a lot of trial and error. I think in not having that experience, though, it did actually kind of help us create something very unique because it started to get some interest from the pomade community and from some pomade reviewers and hair product reviewers. We're talking, YouTube reviews were the big thing back in 2012, 2014, right? And so that kind of really helped propel us, and it just really kind of organically grew. And we just sort of scaled it over time.
That is so fun. So cool. Yeah. So would you say that there's anything that you learned maybe from building Dessert Oasis that you were able to apply to Ace High or even vice versa?
Yeah, I think over the years, there's been, kind of a give and take on both, right? I think I knew that starting Ace High, I needed to start something that was structured in a way that wouldn't take a bunch of my hours because I only had so many more hours of sleep to give up, really, and it was kind of, a matter of how do we structure something that, isn't just a matter of sheer hours. So when we set it up at first, it was a few hours a week that me and him would, really it was kind of our social time anyway. We would just hang out, have a couple beers and brew pomade, right? It was only a few hours a week. And then, we scaled it little by little over time. They are very different businesses, obviously, especially Ace High being a little bit more e-commerce focused, not really as much brick and mortar. We sell to barbershops and stuff like that. That's our most, tactile aspect of the business. But, other than that, it's so much more digital. And so I think that also taught us a lot about, how to structure growth for Dessert Oasis over time as well.
Yeah. No, I love that. I always feel like, diversity of experiences, you bring like a different facet, to the table. So I love that. So, okay. So let's see. So as a young leader in this industry, who has already so much experience, is there something that you'd like to change about the coffee industry or improve?
Sure. I mean, I think one of the big things is I want to see more careers in coffee, right? That's a big thing for us is the creation of growth opportunities and the creation of more career type roles in coffee. Over the years, we've met and worked with so many passionate, talented people who always have that compromise of, that societal pressure to, get a real job or get into your actual field. And I think it's always been something that we've been really proud of in scenarios where, people are able to say, this is a real job. And I've, been able to do so much in coffee and we're trying to continue that growth. I mean, I think one of the big things is just really kind of trying to change that mindset about, working in coffee.
Yeah, no, I think that is fantastic because it's a craft. I mean, there Absolutely. Really is, it really is a craft. So, okay, we talked about mentors, we talked about your dad, who's had the most impact on you or who has inspired you, whether it's in coffee or in life?
That's a great question. I mean, I know I talked about my dad quite a bit as a sort of mentor. My mom as well. I mean, I think, my mom is just a saint practically. And I think, she really taught me a lot about, just being a better person, I think in general as well. And so, I've always said that I think, one of the biggest advantages I've had in my life is just having great parents. And so that's a huge force for sure. On the coffee front, I mean, there's so many people over the years that have really been great sort of either sounding boards or givers of advice or even just ears for me, when I've, needed to try to figure something out. I have a good friend on the west side of the country now. He's in Spokane, Washington, Aaron Jordan at Roast House, who over the years we've really just stayed in touch on our growth in coffee. He got his start actually roasting on the same Ronco rotisserie oven that I was roasting on. I sold him the Ronco rotisserie oven. We used to roast coffees together, and he moved out west and started roasting in his dorm, started like a little, side business in school. And then eventually became the roast master for Roast House and was winning good food awards and stuff all the time. So he's doing amazing things out there. We've always stayed in touch. Other than that, I read a lot of, Scott Rayo and I just try to consume as much info as I can, really.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Okay, so I'm going to run through a few questions here that'll be a little bit more rapid fire. So,
sure.
Okay, so do you have a life motto or words you live by?
Sure. I don't know about a specific motto as much as just, I think really anything you do, I think really just kind of giving it everything you can. And I think that, plays into every aspect of life, really. I don't just mean that professionally. I mean that in relationships and anything that you invest yourself in, I think is just to really give it your all.
Yeah. If it's worth your time, it's worth doing well. Right.
Right.
So, okay. As a leader in this industry, right. I gotta say a young leader, but still a leader. What are the 3 words you would use to describe yourself?
I suppose hardworking. I think caring. I think like I just tend to care a lot, about all different aspects. Maybe detail oriented. But with that, I think it's important to not get too lost in the weeds,
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Try not to be a perfectionist,
Yeah. Yeah. That's a hard one for me over the years.
Yeah.
I think that was probably my biggest challenge. So, okay. Is there one piece of advice you'd give to someone that wants to enter, the coffee world or just starting, even just starting a business, like one piece of advice? I know you talked about, taking in, or life motto around, if you're going to jump in, basically jump in, with 2 feet,
Sure.
do it well. But what about a piece of advice? Like if somebody said to you, I want to start a coffee company. What is the coffee company or business advice you'd give them?
Totally. I mean, I would say do it, right? Is kind of the big thing. 'Cause I feel like it's so common to see, to kind of, add to the perfectionism thing, right? I've got a lot of friends that are really focused on doing everything so 100% right. That I think that could be sometimes a limiter sometimes, right? Because you don't always get to bat 100%. Sometimes you just got to get something out there and you could refine it as you go. So, we started Ace High, me and Christian, my business partner, put in $500 each. And that's what we started with. And there was so much that's like so embarrassing now to look back at, the way we approach different things, but you got to start somewhere. And I think it's way better to start somewhere and figure it out as you go, than to just, never start because you're worried about making it 100%.
Totally agree. So, okay. Do you have like a random fascinating fact that most coffee consumers probably don't know? Like something that, that you've learned in the process of whether it's roasting coffee or just about grinding coffee or, making a latte. I mean, anything.
Sure. I mean, I think it's, the amount that goes into what we do with coffee, right? I have this conversation with so many customers that are, regulars of our stores even. So clearly they know at least a bit about what we do, and they're buying, small micro lot coffees and appreciating those coffees. And even they're sometimes like really surprised to hear all that goes into it, right? On the barista end, what our team is doing to keep coffees dialed in, to the roasting end, the sourcing end, and honestly, even just the maintenance end. I think, when I show people the roaster and stuff, they're like, man, I don't know why I just assumed like that this was just like, an oven or something that you just threw it in and took it out of, right? I think really the real craft of it is one of the biggest surprises to so many people still.
Yeah. There's a lot of hands that touch that one cup of coffee.
Absolutely. Yeah. And even, so many before us, right? Before it's stateside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Okay. So this is the thing that it's that I like to call the U3 top 3. So really brief answers. Sure. Your favorite brewing method?
V60, probably.
Okay. And your coffee drink of choice, like consumption, like black or latte or hot or cold, or maybe a certain origin or wash.
Yeah, generally black coffee, pour over usually.
Yep. And how many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
I try to do only half cups, but I do a lot of those half cups. So several. Yeah.
Yes. I'm in the teens, and I just gotta, sometimes I gotta slow it down. Okay. Well, I want to highlight one thing because you were so gracious to send me some of your coffee, and I so enjoyed it. I loved your Kenya AA, and I know I'm the name that comes after. Thank you.
Yep.
That was absolutely outstanding. So it was, I really enjoyed it. It's everything you're doing is worth, bringing in those, small lots from various origins. So thank you for sharing that with me. And now I want to give you an opportunity to share where someone can find out more about you or about Dessert Oasis Coffee.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, Instagram is always a great place, to find info about Dessert Oasis. It's always just, the easiest to be most updated, all sorts of new coffees and happenings. So Dessert Oasis Coffee Roasters with underscores for spaces. You'll find us on Instagram. Our website is www.docr.coffee. You can get all of our coffees there. I would say, keep an eye out on those two platforms. Now that we have our headquarters in Ferndale, we're also trying to do a lot more, public events and, things that we could really bring the community together with. We have the World AeroPress Championship Regionals that we're going to be hosting in the lab actually on October 7th. So depending on when this airs, I don't know if there's time for competitors to sign up or not, but that's coming up soon here. And
awesome.
Great places to keep an eye out for things like that.
Very nice. And where can somebody find out more about your hair products?
Ace Highco on Instagram, and the website is acehighco.com. Two best places, I'd say.
That is perfect. Thank you so much for joining us today, Nate. And of course, what an inspiring story and so interesting.
Thank you.
Unconventional for sure.
Yep.
I'll give you that. It's awesome.
Thank you. No, I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And of course, thanks for helping us unite the world through coffee. And thank you to you, our followers, for joining us at U3 Coffee. We'll see you next time.